Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So as you can see by the title, I did in fact have to say farewell to the Land Cruiser just for a little bit, and it's already killing me, to be honest. So as most of you know, I guess if you've been following the channel, I flew out to Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee, purchased the Land Cruiser, and then drove to our new house that we just closed on at the end of April. So I drove it out to the new house, got to see that in person for the first time, which is crazy, which is I guess scary to say out loud that, we closed on it before actually seeing it in person. Obviously we did a virtual walkthrough and all that, but still, so it was a pleasant surprise. Everything was wonderful and as we expected. But the point of this video, I'm telling you guys, I unfortunately had to park it there until we actually depart Washington State here in early July. So maybe late June. We're kind of debating between a little bit here, but I'll be wrapping up my work here at the end of June, allowing us to actually make our departure out there. So until then, yes, I'm going to be maybe shooting a few random videos for you guys, but there will be no Land Cruiser content until July, I'm afraid. So but I figured I'd at least take this opportunity to kind of talk through the differences of the 4Runner TRD Pro here against that Land Cruiser. I mean, even in that last video that I uploaded introducing the Land Cruiser, a few of you had commented like, hey, what are your immediate, I guess, what are the major differences between the 4Runner and the Land Cruiser? I've done videos of this nature before, so I don't want to totally beat a dead horse, but I figured since I just returned and I went from driving, several hours, of course, in the Land Cruiser, back-to-back driving, and then jumping into this right when I got home, literally right when I got to my wife picked me up from the airport, I jumped into this and drove home. So I had immediate back-to-back driving for it again. And again, it was just a cruel reminder of really just the overall differences for it. I mean, the Land Cruiser is in a different league. Let's make that very clear. I mean, it's in a different league, and for good reason, given how much it freaking cost, right? I mean, we're talking $90,000, nearly double, not quite, but nearly double what it costs to buy a 4Runner or TRD Pro here, right? So, and for good reason, you feel it immediately. But in this video, I'm just going to walk through the most notable differences right when you hop in the 4Runner here, okay? So bear with me, this is not going to be all-inclusive by any means, but I figured I'd walk you through it. So for starters, the most obvious thing is the overall heft. So when you even like I mentioned in my previous videos, when you open up the door of the Land Cruiser, you just feel just how heavy and durable the vehicle is, right? And when you open up the 4Runner here, I mean, it's not bad by any means. I would argue that even the Tundra is the most, I guess, flimsy of all the doors. I mean, if you have driven a Tundra, you know what I'm talking about. They're super light, but especially given how big they are. Whereas these, I mean, they're at least a fitting weight, I think, for the door. Whereas when you open up the door in the Land Cruiser, it is noticeably heavy, right, between the two of them here. So the overall heft, not just within the doors, of course, but when you're actually driving it too. So when you're driving it, no kidding, does feel like you are driving a bank vault when you're putzing around. And of course, you do feel it. You get a lot of body roll, and you get it in this too. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to paint this to be a Porsche between the two of them, but you do get a noticeable. You get more body roll within the Land Cruiser, I'll comfortably say. But, all that heft is demonstrated when you actually look underneath the Land Cruiser. I'm going to try to do a much better video for you guys in the future, maybe even getting underneath the lift, kind of showing you all the components, and really trying to show a good comparison between that and the 4Runner here. It is, everything underneath that Land Cruiser is substantially more heavy duty than this, much more beefy underneath. So I digress on that point. Power delivery is the most obvious one too. I mean, just the fact that the Land Cruiser has a 5.7 liter V8 with 381 horsepower, 401 foot-pounds of torque, compared to, and I say this one loosely. I don't want you guys to think that I'm painting the 4Runner to be bad, because I do think that the 4 liter V6 in this, tied to the 5-speed automatic transmission, is plenty. And quite frankly, I think this is far superior, and I know I've kind of beat this to death too before, but I mean, I do think it's far superior to the Tacoma's 3.5 liter V6. And just, it has longer gears, right? Less gears, of course, in this. So I think you're not constantly shifting in this, which I think is a good thing given this power plant, the 4.0. Whereas with that 3.5, it's constantly hunting for gears until you do the tune or the the re-gearing, if you will, that a lot of people end up doing to that Tacoma. But you don't have to do any of that with the 4Runner here. So another plus 1 point for the 4Runner over the Tacoma. But with the Land Cruiser, has an 8-speed automatic transmission that is so smooth when you're driving it. And if you've driven one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think it's just so smooth. It has the same engine, of course, as the Tundra, the 5.7, but the Tundra has a 6-speed automatic, right? So a little bit different, and you can notice the difference too, even when you're just kind of getting on the freeway and whatnot. So the 8-speed tied to that 5.7 liter V8 is a recipe for success, in my opinion. So the power delivery is a noticeable difference. Cabin space, so another obvious one too, right? The 4Runner is not bad, okay? And it makes, I don't know, I mean, it's perfect for most families, really. But right when you get into the Land Cruiser, you notice how much more room you have between you and the passenger seat there, which is pretty glorious. So in the back seat, the thing, gosh, about that dad life. In the back seat, the thing you notice immediately is the overall headroom. So when you're trying to get in, you have it's a lot higher within the Land Cruiser. You have more headspace to actually get in and out. And this isn't bad by any means, but by comparison, that Land Cruiser is absolutely superior. Not to mention, I didn't have this in my notes here, but you get a little bit of a blockage here, right, with the C-pillar, right? Yeah, C-pillar. Whereas you don't get that in the Land Cruiser. And I wish I had my Land Cruiser, of course, side by side to kind of give you a better demonstration, but you don't get this. And you got bigger windows all around, not by much, but the bigger windows in the Land Cruiser, so it does allow for even better visibility. Again, maybe I'm about that dad life too much, but that's a good thing. All right, so cabin space. Since we're talking about cabin, interior finishes. So this is a good and bad thing. So I always tout Toyota for being awesome when it comes to just having simplistic finishes. This soft text material is plenty good. I love it. I mean, you're not afraid to ever get it dirty, and we often do, right? And we got kiddos back there always throwing food or apples or whatever, spilling stuff. You're never really worried to get this dirty, and I like that. I love that about Toyota, especially, I mean, the FJ Cruiser is the ultimate example of this. Just plastic absolutely everywhere, but it's perfect, right? I mean, that's exactly what it's supposed to be. So the interior overall, you notice the premium feel when you get into the Land Cruiser. You got metal finishes, so you got metal finishes around the door handle here. The actual door handle itself matches the look of the Tundra door handle, the big Tonka truck one, but it's actually metal, has an aluminum finish to it. Within here, this is all a metal finish as well, with a little pop-up for the cup holders within the Land Cruiser. And same goes up here. So you got some metal finishes up on the infotainment, surrounding the infotainment. Whereas this is all pretty cheap feeling, pretty plasticky, right? And this is that faux carbon fiber, which I've meowed plenty about at this point, but yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of that fake carbon fiber look. But one thing, I don't think I ever mentioned this before, maybe I did, but the ceiling in the 4Runners is tan. And within the Land Cruiser is black. I like that black felt material, and looks super premium by comparison. But even the Tacoma has a black roof liner, which, again, that came out in 2016, right? So you think they would have matched it by now, and I don't know. You just think they would have matched it by now. The infotainment within the 4Runner, I think, is superior, in my opinion. This bit here, even the audio system, I think is on par-ish. Land Cruiser might have it beat by a little bit, but I'm definitely not an audio head by any means. So maybe you audio connoisseurs out there can beat me up a little bit with that statement. But I think, they're on par. You got the quote-unquote upgraded JBL sound system within the TRD Pros here, and I think it sounds great. But this, you got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. I don't even like saying that example, because I think car reviewers beat that to death as if it's like the most important thing in the world. But I do agree. At this point, being 2021, that Land Cruiser being the most premium, most expensive vehicle that Toyota offers, it should have it, absolutely. And not to mention, I think it'd just be an easy system software update, really. So, small thing there, but I do think holistically. Even the controls down here, I do think, the simplicity of the fan speed, the temperature adjustments, all that, the fan modes is super straightforward, and it doesn't really distract you too much while you're driving to adjust it. So blah blah blah, all that to say, I think the center infotainment section is superior in this. As for the actual gauges, I think they're kind of on par with each other. They have that upgraded resolution screen here starting in 2020 for the TRD Pros, which is it was a much needed upgrade over the 2019. If you guys recall, the 2019 looked like a 16-bit straight out of the early 2000s. So definitely a much needed improvement for 2020 model year. What else? So I think I kind of beat that to death, but so the noise is my next point here. So within the Land Cruiser, it is extremely quiet, in my opinion. Even having that V8, it doesn't have a TRD catback exhaust or anything. It doesn't have any kind of sporty exhaust on it, because that's not what the Land Cruiser is supposed to be. It's not about that at all. Whereas I think the TRD catback exhaust on this is a fitting exhaust to put on something like this. It makes more sense. But on the Land Cruiser, one thing I don't think too many people talk about is that Yakima Mega Warrior roof basket. That roof basket is super loud. It's super, when the wind's hitting it while you're cruising down the freeway, you definitely hear that thing. But when it comes to actually exhaust note, you get very little of it unless you're totally on the throttle within the Land Cruiser. But even then, it's nothing to write home to mom about, right? But again, I want to make it clear, that's not the point of a Land Cruiser. You don't need to be in that burly TRD exhaust rolling down the freeway. That's just not the point of it, right? It's to be kind of a little bit more low-key, I think. Whereas the exhaust in this, it sounds great. However, some people have gripes about. I don't, but some people they think it gets a little bit drony, right? While you're on the freeway, every time it shifts gears, between fourth and fifth, whatever on the freeway, you hear it, and it's a constant little bit of a droning sound. And I see their point, but like I said, it just has never bothered me. You guys let me know what you guys think of the TRD exhaust. All right, I already talked about the simplicity. I think the 4Runner at large is closer to its core of what Toyota set out to make the Land Cruiser in the first place, right? So I mean, it is, hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, that Land Cruiser was always meant to be kind of like that raw, simplistic SUV platform, whereas, it was going to be always big enough to carry the family, but it was never going to be the super swanky, super luxurious rig. And I think, just over time, especially in the U.S., right, I think we've just distanced ourselves from that by a long shot. Whereas this, it is so simplistic, and that's why it's so refreshing to get into. And the same goes for the FJ Cruiser, of course. Already talked about the audio kind of being on par. The biggest, most noticeable difference right when you start driving it is, in my opinion, the steering feel. And I mentioned this before in one of my previous videos, but the steering feel in the Land Cruiser is super heavy. So when you're getting like a subtle arm workout all day long as you're driving that thing around, especially when you're going slower speeds, driving around a parking lot, whatever. You definitely notice the added weight to that steering by comparison to something like this. I think that's largely due to the fact that it is a full-time four-wheel drive platform, the Land Cruiser. Whereas this, as you guys know, is it is two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive like a standard truck, but then you put it into four-wheel drive with that manual shift, the gear shift there in the center, to actually put it into four-wheel drive. So I think that is a large part of why you get that heavier steering feel, which is okay. It's not bad by any means, but you will notice it immediately. And some people actually like that. They like that added heft, and it kind of reminds them that they're driving a little bit more of a heavy-duty vehicle. Suspension feel. This is one I didn't really know what to say about this one. So as you guys know, in the TRD Pro, you get the TRD Tune Fox suspension, right? You get that within here. In 2020 or 2021, they did a minor upgrade to the Tune, same exact suspension, but a minor update to the Tune itself, making it a little bit more effective on higher speeds off-road, to my understanding, right? I don't know. I think I love it. I have always loved the 4Runner TRD Pro's stock TRD or TRD tuned Fox suspension. I've always loved it, and I've never had a single gripe. It does feel super smooth, you know, when you're getting in and out of driveways, when you're going off-road and whatever, it feels super smooth, and I've never had a single gripe about it. Whereas, you know, Land Cruiser's the same thing. So, and again, I'm expecting a little bit of flack for that, but they do feel on par. Granted, let me make it very clear, of course, I've never taken them both extreme off-roading, so I can't give you guys a fantastic representation of the difference between them. But I personally think they're both amazing. Alrighty, well, I mean, those are kind of the few points I jotted down. I'm sure I'm going to miss a few things, but long story short, I love the 4Runner TRD Pro, and some of you are going to hear this and be like, oh great, here the 4Runner's off, is done for. But you know, I absolutely love the 4Runner, and I always have, which is why I've had way too many of them at this point. I do think it's the best of the TRD Pro models for most people. Granted, you're going to need different things for different people, you know, different strokes for different folks. I get it, but there's a reason why this is the most popular TRD Pro model. There's a very good reason why this is it. I do think that when they go away with this and move to the 6th generation, I think that a lot of people are going to miss this. I don't think that I don't know. So this 4-liter tied to that 5-speed, I think it's just the perfect combination. And I think, you know, any deviation from that, people are going to miss. The good thing is, there's going to be no shortage of them. TRD Pros maybe a little bit, depending on who you ask, but even with TRD Pros, they made a lot. They made a ton of these. Whereas, you know, Land Cruisers, they made about anywhere from 3,500 to 4,500 each year for the last 10 years or so, right? So they've just progressively gone down really until this last year in sales. So there's not so many of them by comparison. You know, with the 4Runner, there's a ton, an absolute ton. So there's not going to be a shortage of them, but I do think this is going to continue to age well. You know, it is, like I said, the simplicity, that powertrain, the transmission, I think it's just a perfect recipe for success and long-term success, really, and popularity. So with that, guys, I think I've geeked out plenty in this video. So I know I kind of rambled on a few times here, but now I just wanted to walk you through that and let you guys know, unfortunately, I won't be sharing any Land Cruiser content really until July. So bear with me on that, guys. Appreciate you watching as always. Till next time.